Welcome to the Online Course Masters Show, where we learn from the best online course creators how to better create and sell our very own courses. This is Phil Ebner, and in this episode, I chat with Mike Wheeler, who went from selling Snuggies to teaching online courses, working with his family, and becoming one of the best-selling Salesforce instructors on Udemy. His story is coming right up. Visit onlinecoursemasters.com for show notes to watch the video version of this episode and see an archive of all our past guests. Please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. Please, if you haven't done so already, leave a review for this show wherever you listen to it. Now, let's get straight to the interview. All right, everyone, welcome to the Online Course Masters podcast. Today, I'm with Mike Wheeler, who teaches Salesforce on Udemy, and he's also expanding to other platforms. I'm super excited to hear about him, a little story about Snuggies, and more about his business that he is working on with his family. So, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Phil. Excited to join in, and thanks for spending some time with me.
Awesome. Well, I'll start out with a big question that a lot of listeners love hearing and love knowing about. What do you love most about teaching online classes?
It's a great question. I think what I like the most is being able to connect with people. And I've been exposed to a lot of different people from all cultures as well, teaching online. And then as well, since I'm teaching on Salesforce, it's a really in-demand skill to have. It's something that I've been fortunate enough to learn. And then also being able to teach and to provide this content online, I feel like it helps other people's lives and helps them advance in their career. And so I really appreciate being able to connect with people and then help improve their lives, their financial stability, career stability, because there's a lot of changes going on in the marketplace. And so people being able to launch a career in the cloud, I'm all about that. And it's because I've lived it. I've gone through the process of doing that myself. And so I just look at my role as someone as blazing a path and clearing a path to make it easier for others to follow in behind. And I'm just following the example of those that have come before me as well. So that's just kind of what I'm all about and what I like doing with teaching online.
Yeah, I love it. And I think with that attitude for people listening, it's the perfect way to get started and to have success. If you're caring about actually helping people, those are the teachers that I've seen have the most success on Udemy, on their own platforms, or not even just Udemy, online with their own websites or YouTube channels. So, and of course, it's nice to make money too on the side, but it starts with caring for the person and helping people. So you sent me a message about getting started with Snuggies, and I want to hear this story. And so it sounds like you're a little bit more familiar with the online world than some other people. So tell us about Snuggies.
Okay, yeah, so this is an interesting and kind of funny story. And for those that don't know what the Snuggie is, it's the blanket with sleeves. It came out in early 2009 or maybe late 2008, and it was just all over the airwaves, selling a lot. And I found it humorous, and so I launched a couple of websites around the Snuggie phenomenon right when it was taking off. And so I kind of fell into the right place, right time sort of mode, and I was just learning WordPress and creating my own websites. And so I could tell that because of how ridiculous the blanket with sleeves was, that people would wear these in public. And I wanted to know basically where would I submit a photo online whenever I saw someone out in the wild wearing a Snuggie and being silly. And that didn't exist. And I thought, well, we need to fix that. So I created SnuggieSightings.com. And that site is still up, although it's been kind of laying dormant for a couple of years. I may fire it back up just for old time's sake. And then as well, there was this, wave of interest in people putting on Snuggies and going on pub crawls. And so I documented that whole phenomenon with SnuggiePubCrawls.com. Now, this doesn't have much to do with online teaching, but where this ties in is this was my first aha moment that you can make serious money online. And, I created this kind of just to be funny and be silly, and I was linking as an affiliate to Amazon and was only making like $1 per sell. And then the actually All-Star Marketing, the people that created the Snuggie, they said, oh, no, let's get you in touch with our own affiliate network and you'll make like $12 to $16 per sell. And so because I was in on that craze early and did a lot of content, and then a lot of people linked to that and shared it, and it ended up growing to be featured in books and on TV and internationally as well. So it hit the top of Google Trends. I mean, ridiculous things happened. And so I ended up, during some of the peak times, really having some incredible days, And so that was my first exposure to selling a product online, and I saw how much money could be made, the power of being number one on Google when you search for the word Snuggie. And so that was where the journey began for me, was as an affiliate selling someone else's product.
Okay. I'm curious, do you make any Snuggie affiliate sales still?
Not really. I still get traffic to the site, and I've thought about actually somehow linking everything to my courses and just saying, here's what I'm up to now. But it would probably rank well because that stuff's been up since 2009. But I get the occasional like Amazon, but most of their affiliate program they've put an end to. So, and the craze has died down. But you see the traffic going up and down with each winter. So it's been an interesting thing. So I learned a lot as well about managing WordPress sites and tracking traffic and Google Analytics and Google AdSense, etc. So a fun time, a lot of good memories there.
Yeah, cool. And it definitely can be tied to teaching online courses in the sense that you kind of jumped on board to this hot trending topic. And there are people who, you have to be fortunate to know a hot topic, but like right now, there's a lot that has to do with development, cloud computing, these hot topics. I see people jumping into them and teaching them, and they have a lot of success. Of course, it is beneficial to have a background in those topics. You can't just jump in and teach any trending topic. You won't come up with a good class, but it is something that paying attention to trends is a good idea with your course topics. So you teach Salesforce, and that's basically all you're teaching right now. Talk just a little bit more about your background with Salesforce and how you got into teaching your first online course.
So I first ran into Salesforce probably around the time of the Snuggie stuff taking off, and maybe a little before that. I had a client. I did a lot of different things, technical writing. So I've got a background in creating curriculum and training material, which has served me well. And so I had a client, and I was also doing like search engine marketing, just a lot of different things. And I had a client needing a web to lead form. Did that and promptly forgot about Salesforce until about 2011. So that's not that long ago was when I really had another aha moment. And this is post Snuggie craze and Google updates to make it harder to be number one on Google, basically. And so I found a book in a Barnes & Noble bookstore about developing on the Salesforce platform, and I remember doing that project a few years ago, and as I was looking at it, I thought, I think I can do this, okay? So now I've gone in just like 6 years from thinking I could do this to teaching others online. Now, that to me just kind of blows my mind. Now, that is a short amount of time, but it's not a case of just jumping on a craze. It started off as, I think I can do this, and there's a lot of work and demand for that. And then I just worked a lot of projects. I took on a lot of different projects, did a lot of contracts, did a lot of side work, and just worked a lot. And that's one of the key things that comes to mind whenever you want to find success in anything in life, is to work hard and put in the work and put your head down and become an expert in something, And there's plenty of people that are smarter than me. I'm rare that I'm the smartest guy in the room. There's plenty of people that know more about Salesforce than I do, but I do bring a background of knowing enough and have done enough projects, and then also bringing years of experience creating curriculum and training material through technical writing space, and then understanding all those other pieces of marketing and products and all that I find myself in a nice position. So it's kind of like a 20-year overnight success story. As is most situations, it doesn't happen overnight. And so, I see people trying to just jump into whatever the latest trend is. And, you really got to find a niche where you're an expert, where you would not be embarrassed to say that, you know a lot about what you're talking about. Not that you're the top person in the world, but you bring a unique voice or perspective. And then, kind of bringing this back to connecting with people, another thing that I learned early on when I was dealing with the Snuggie stuff was that I was working behind the scenes a lot, connecting with people, and they would post their photos on the website. And I tried to, I termed it, the phrase I used was I tried to be awesome in private. And so even in just one-on-one interactions with people, rather than the big public things and the crazy things going on with pub crawls or blog posts or whatever, but in the day-to-day dealings with people, just being encouraging and positive. And I have to do that a lot more now as I'm teaching Salesforce, because there's, a lot of hurdles a lot to learn. There's a steep learning curve, but it's very attainable. And that's what appealed to me when I first discovered it back in 2011 in that bookstore, was just how attainable it was. And to me, it was the most attainable path to a cloud career that I'd yet to find. And so I just went all in for it. And then soon thereafter, I was just turning around, and anyone with a pulse, I was like, man, you should do Salesforce, because there's just so many jobs out there. So now I'm kind of doing that with online teaching. I'm looking around, and anyone that I know that will stop for a moment and they have a pulse, if they say anything about teaching, I'm saying, oh, you should teach a course online. It's awesome. So anyway, that's a long answer to your question, but I'll stick to it.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm going to kind of jump forward, and we're going to go back and forth, but I want to know, kind of set the stage where you are right now. A lot of the listeners are brand new. Maybe they've been on Udemy for a few years. They've got a number of courses. Some people have been on Udemy and they're jumping onto their own platforms. Kind of set the stage for where you are right now in terms of your courses on Udemy and what you're working on today.
Okay, awesome. So my first paid course went live on Udemy March 30th of last year. So I'm about a year and 4 months in. That's a short amount of time as well. Prior to that, my first actual course was a free course, and I launched that about 6 weeks prior. That was born out of it taking me so long to create my first course. I peeled off the intro stuff and just created it as a free course, had a lot of background information. Okay, so fast forward to today, I have what I think approaching 24,000 students on Udemy and 9 courses. 6 of those contain video instruction, 2 are practice test courses for certifications, and then there's 1 free one on Udemy. So I recently did that for an upcoming course, because it's history repeating itself. It's taken me a long time to create the course that I'm working on now, which is a consultant course for the Sales Cloud, and I've had a lot of delays and other things come up, and just trying to manage my audience and answer questions, etc. And so I've started to branch out onto some other platforms because I just see other people doing the same. I've watched you closely, Phil, and I've pinged you a few times asking some questions, and then others, and so I've recently launched myqueelermedia.com, and so that is on Teachable, though. And so a lot of my courses are on there. And then I've got a little bit on some other platforms, but nothing. Well, I guess probably the next biggest thing for me right now is on Stack Commerce, and I believe you're on there as well. I think I asked you about how do you get on there, and finally got selected for that. You kind of have to be really vetted to make it on there. And I think with any platform, you got to really understand the context and the audience, and there's some platforms like Skillshare, that's more for graphic design. That's more in your wheelhouse, Phil. And I've seen in your income reports how that number's going up, and mine is just pathetic compared to like my minutes consumed on Udemy, so they're starting to show that monthly numbers and everything. So right now I'm working on continuing to churn out courses, not churn out, but provide quality content around Salesforce training, and doing that on Udemy, and figuring out how to do that on my own platform as well. So those are the primary focal points.
Got it. Cool. I'm curious, when you started teaching Salesforce, were there other people teaching Salesforce at that time?
So yeah, even before I discovered Udemy, I felt like I would eventually be teaching Salesforce because of my background as a trainer, and it was more written than spoken or on video or anything like that. And so I couldn't figure out a path to really make that monetizable, or some way that would have any sort of decent return on investment. And so there's some things that are to my advantage as far as my family makeup, as far as some of my sons are very skilled in certain specific skill sets, but back to your point as to what was out there at that time, and this was, January through March of 2016 as I was producing that first course, there were probably 24 courses on Salesforce, but there was nothing really geared towards that first base entry certification, and that's the administrator certification, and that's kind of what the vast majority of people go through, and it's still to this day my best-selling course by far. And so I just geared it right towards that certification, and for lack of knowing what I was doing, I structured the course after the exam guide, and there's different knowledge areas that Salesforce says you need to understand, and so I had a section for each knowledge area, and then each bullet point in the exam guide I made sure to have at least one or more lectures around. And then I really tried to just flesh out this course by doing demonstrations, screen demonstrations using Camtasia, and then that way students could follow along if they wanted to or not. So there was a good amount of courses out there. I made the mistake of thinking that mine would only do so well comparing it to what was out there. But what I didn't know or realize, because this is before Udemy Insights that shows, conversion rates of different topics and stuff, that there was a burgeoning market for Salesforce courses that the supply wasn't meeting. And so there were a lot of people looking at the offerings that were there and deciding that those weren't for them. And so when mine hit, I had 6 weeks on the clock with the free course. So I started building up an audience, and in my the last lecture, which Udemy lets you do a bonus lecture, I linked to my website with even as I'm talking, I'm thinking, is this okay to have done, or am I going to lead people astray? Because Udemy has so many rules, Yeah. One of the reasons why I'm building my own platform. But anyway, I digress. So I sent them to my website with the full outline of the full course and saying, hey, this is a free sneak peek of what's coming. Here's the outline. If you want to be alerted to when the course goes live, share your email. And so I had a list of about 200. So my list started out at 0, goose egg. Even, for years, I had over 1 million people come through my Snuggie websites, and I didn't capture a single email address, and I was anti-email marketing. I was like, oh, I'm above that. And, I'm kind of rethinking that policy now. But I started out from 0 and recently, and so I had a list of 200 email addresses. So when I finally launched on March 30th of 2016, I got the email late at night that my course had gone live. It was like 1 in the morning. I stay up late, I work a lot. So I frantically was like, it's go time at 1 in the morning. So I sent out my email to my list, and then I think by the time I woke up, the next morning, I had made like 8 sales or something like that. I ended up doing 28 sales the first day for my first course out of the box. And so I actually had a call from a Udemy executive that day because he wanted to know more about us and what we were doing and our family, and because he made mention of, the numbers looked real, and caught his attention, and then as well, just the production quality, which is kind of leading into how I'm not doing all this by myself, but with the talents of my sons as well, which really is helpful. So.
Hey, Phil here. Are you enjoying this episode? I really hope you are, and I hope you're learning to become a better online course creator. If you want to fast track your success, head over to onlinecoursemasters.com and get your free trial of the full flagship program, the Masterclass for Online Course Creators. Get more information at onlinecoursemasters.com. Got it. Wow, that's super cool that you had that much success the first day. And for people listening, at least currently, and always check the policies, but it is still fine to use that bonus lecture to direct people to really wherever. So you can create a free course, have that last lecture be the bonus lecture, and send people directly to an opt-in form. So that's what happened, right? You had a free course that was just a mini course. You just put it out there, and that's where all those emails, those 200 emails people came from. Wow. That is really actually optimistic, because I think a lot of people don't use free courses on Udemy, and at least at that time, that's proof that worked. And you said, I think you mentioned that you're doing that for an upcoming course too?
Yes, so I've been working forever, like 3, 4, 5 months, a long time, on a Sales Cloud Consultant certification course, and And so I've put the first 35 minutes, it's just over that 30-minute mark, of what Udemy considers a course. And I've opened that up as a free course. And then in the bonus lecture, it takes you to my website. And it's basically just a traditional, what they call squeeze page, to where, I've got the course outline. I've actually embedded some of the videos from YouTube on that landing page. And then I'm using ConvertKit to capture email addresses. And then there's a lot of people that are already in my list. And so that's, for every 10 people that sign up for a free course on Udemy, one might actually start it, And so then it's up to you to get them through the 30 minutes in an engaging way and keep your rating above a 4.1. I see a lot of people in the Udemy groups complaining about how free courses don't work. They need to look in the mirror and see what they need to improve upon. And, that's just the way that it is. If you can be engaging, have good quality content, and get them past that 30-minute mark to the end, and not expect, a ton of people to finish the course, but that will also be a good way to test your concept to see before you invest 100 hours into creating a course. And so, I've been on the platform on Udemy and then doing online training now for about a year and a half, and I'm reverting back to doing free courses while there's this growing sentiment that it's a waste of time. And so, and I've seen you do the same thing, Phil, and I thought that was really interesting. And I think that we're on to something. And a lot of times it's just thinking critically about the stuff, what works, what doesn't, and always testing, stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. And I know even Udemy themselves say that students on average give worse reviews to free courses than to paid courses, which I can kind of understand. But at the same time, like you're saying, I've put out free courses and I don't, slack on the free course, and I try to make it the best possible. And they're still getting, above that 4.0, some of them above 4.5. So I think I love that strategy, especially for people who are just getting started out. And then, so are you taking that free course and turning it into the paid course, or are you creating a brand new paid course once you launch it?
So on this one, it's like the first 35 minutes, or it's pieces of what will eventually be the paid course. And so, I'm really debating about right now how to even do all this, because I've got the free course on Udemy, and I just treat it like an infomercial. We're going back to my As Seen on TV roots with Snuggie. And, that would be called a long-form infomercial. It's a 30-minute informational product to get the call to action to buy the full course. And so I'll probably just keep that out there as free. And I'm really strongly considering, I don't know if I'll regret this or not, but I'm considering launching my next course just exclusively on my own platform and just see what happens.
Yeah. I would, like you say, test it out. And if it totally bombs, you can put it on Udemy and see how it
exactly
does.
Yeah.
And I would think that creating a brand new course on Udemy might be a better way. I don't know. I've seen it work both ways. Converting a free course to paid sometimes works, but I know Udemy does look at, when you launch a course, they look at that first 30 days or something of sales, and that really dictates how it goes into their promotion machine. They have the new tags that, you search for a course and new courses pop up with a new badge. So having a brand new course might be a better thing on Udemy. Now that you have an audience on Udemy that you can promote to and give it that boost yourself anyways. So cool. Awesome. So do you still think that Udemy is a good place for new instructors, or do you think that if someone was starting today, should they just try to do it their own way and start a Teachable site or Thinkific and go their own path?
That's a great question, and it's a loaded one for me because I have a lot of opinions about Udemy. They're an awesome platform. They're by far my biggest revenue earner, so I can't complain, And I don't know where I would have begun, doing this without Udemy. And so that was like a testing ground. And I think even now, it's a great place to be on because you can test out your delivery style, and they've got a huge audience, and it's a growing audience. And I think especially since they released Udemy Insights, they are making key moves in the right direction. And some of those things have to do with more transparency, more visibility, more communication with instructors, because we do provide the content that is on their platform that drives, the students there. They are marketing geniuses. They're really good at marketing. And but with the Udemy Insights, that does reveal that over half of sales, and I've seen this in my own case as well, over half of those sales are just organic. That just means people that are browsing the site and they run across something. And I've had so many students that have come into this realm of Salesforce that knew nothing about it, and they thought it was something related to sales. And so that's really appealing to me, because I learned to do this as an affiliate for Snuggie. Was, I operate under the good graces of either, the product owner, whether it's Snuggie, All-Star Marketing, or Salesforce even, because, I'm out there training people how to get certified on their platform. And so regardless of what product you're selling online, either as an affiliate or as you're creating your own product, whether it's informational or some sort of course or product, you need to bring value to the student and value to the product owner. Because ultimately, in my case, Salesforce is the product owner. It's not me. I didn't create Salesforce, even though I've had people ask me that as well. It's like, no, I didn't create Salesforce, so you probably would have known that, and I'd probably be dressed nicer than this. But anyways, but I digress. I probably wouldn't be teaching on Udemy anymore, but the point is bringing value, and so I think that it is still a viable platform for sure to do a free course and build up a following or an audience and see, what sort of interest there is. It is a good way of failing fast and moving on. And then if you'll be able to tell if you're onto something because of the engagement. A lot of people won't ever start it, but for those that do, how far do they make it? What are your numbers? I track those sort of things a lot. And then if you see the engagement and then the call to action after the 30 minutes on the tail end of the free course, if you see an email list growing, that's a sign that you're onto something. And if your ratings are falling below that 4.1, then you need to just iterate and improve on the production quality, on your delivery, your structuring of your content, or bringing value. And it's hard to do that in a 30-minute or a little more time frame, because as they say, all this stuff is available for free on YouTube, or all this stuff is somewhere on somebody's website. And so our jobs as instructors is to engage with the audience, remember that they're all humans that we're dealing with, and that we're wanting to help and bring value wherever it may be.
Great advice. You talked about working with your family, and I know your son Aaron is behind the camera helping out, and he's also attached to all of your courses as co-instructor. Just talk about how what does your family do, help you with, and why are you having your family help, and are they enjoying it, I guess?
So I think they're enjoying it, and I would say they are, because bottom line, I could not do this without my family, and I'm fortunate, and it puts others at a terribly unfair advantage, because I could not imagine doing everything that I do, plus everything that Aaron does. Then I have another son, Anthony, who is a Salesforce developer, and he's helped on key points on some of my courses with some of the more complex coding and some of the things where throughout this duration of a course, for one of my courses, we created an IMDb clone app. Now, I could have muddled through that, but it would have taken me a year, And so Anthony, he can do that in a day or two. And so leveraging their gifts, their abilities. And so I'm very fortunate to have some very talented sons. And so what I do and why they're co-instructors with me is because I give them a revenue share, And so I try not to scrimp by on that either or take advantage of them, but really reflect the value that they bring. Because especially early on, before I had an audience, that was what made the day for me, was my production quality was trumping the other courses that were out there. I didn't have time for my glowing personality to shine through, and so it had to be the production quality, And also, I wasn't nearly as good back then on doing screen demos and being on camera, because a lot of the times I was recording like at 1 in the morning or midnight and tired. And so about 5 to 6% of my students of the early courses have feedback on that. I don't have engaging delivery. So I'm trying to incorporate more jazz hands. But anyway, back to the point of the family. They are enjoying this whole process, and we're now in the midst of, creating our own business. And so we've got Aaron, who does the videography and the editing, and I believe he's taken your Premiere courses as well, so he's put that to use. And then Anthony is helping with the development side, and so he's co-instructor on some of the courses as well. I'm looking at creating a developer course with Anthony and co-instructing with him. And then my wife has recently joined the fun in helping with streamlining processes and operations. She's all about improving efficiencies, and there's a lot in the whole production workflow. And so we've got, a lot to improve with our processes, and that's born out of me, working projects and having this side hustle that has grown into the main hustle of doing these courses online. But even with that, I want to mention here at this point that even though I'm doing courses online, I also still do some project work as well. And that's kind of strategic. I mean, the money is good doing consulting and everything, but it also keeps me up to date with what's going on in the platform. Mm-hmm. So then when I run across things, I can speak from experience and give examples in all these different industries. And it's just authentic and it comes through, and I'm not fooling anybody. It's like I've done it, I've lived it. And a common thing that I say in even my promo videos is that I work on the platform every day. And I might take weekends off sometimes, but for the most part, that's a true statement. So I think I'm good with the FTC on that claim. So.
Yeah, I'm sure that comes across in your training. So it sounds awesome to be working with your family. What is the hardest part about working with your family?
Well, I think the hardest part is that, they have other things going on as well, and so, and it's a good problem to have because, these young men that I've fortunate to be the father of, they're entering into adulthood and starting careers, and Anthony's starting a new Salesforce development contract, and then Aaron does other side work as well. And they're just very busy, they're very in demand. It's because they've had the opportunity to do a lot of different things, and so they've built up quite a skill set that makes them very marketable as well. And so I think some of the challenge is just coordinating schedules, but we all get along awesomely. We love each other, and so it's the greatest possible scenario. I wake up every day thinking, man, who am I to get to live this life? And I'm glad at how it's just a fun life. So.
Yeah, no, sounds cool. So actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, you're still working on projects, because I was curious if, if online courses was transitioning to be your main thing, but what's kind of a typical day or a typical week look like for you nowadays?
So a lot of my time is spent trying to figure out how to keep up with all the questions and comments and LinkedIn comments, Twitter, Facebook, etc. And so a lot of my time is spent around trying to interact with students. And so some things I've done recently to improve with that and kind of offload some of that is create a Facebook group for my students. So really, any student in any of my courses can join the Mike Wheeler Media Salesforce. I don't even remember what it's called, but you'll find it if you look. But you can get in there, and then other students help answer those questions. I've found that the Udemy community or the Q&A is kind of hard to navigate and a lot of common questions. So I'm looking at ways of easing that burden so I can continue to create courses. So the day looks like, if I'm working a project, that's kind of the priority. I put that in my slot number one, and then other spare moments like during lunchtime or late in the day. I mean, I do work remotely and I do have office space. I'm sitting in, this is not in our house. I actually rent a commercial office space, and it's pretty expansive and large. But I found that we needed that in order to kind of separate the whole work-life balance. And so I will start on the course stuff, early in the day before any project work starts, and then work project work, and then at lunch back to course things, see what's going on, and then evenings I tend to not need a lot of sleep, fortunately, and so late, while I'm getting kids to bed and everything and bringing things in for a landing, that's when I usually get caught up on messages, and then a lot of it's just planning the next course, and structuring things, thinking about things to improve. And then just shifting gears with what Salesforce does. They've done some things recently that's causing me to have to update the admin course, but that was overdue anyway. So I'm really still finding my cadence and trying to expand out into other things. And so it's kind of grown beyond what I can do. And so just learning to delegate, leverage the skills of my sons, and then as well with my wife, just the operational and organizational strengths of her, helping me to keep the right priorities in mind so that I get sidetracked really easily, and like, oh, that looks interesting. I'm very entrepreneurial. That's why I'm here, I guess. But, putting the blinders on and having a system in place for things I want to explore further. And then as well, you reach a certain point of, a certain audience size, you start getting opportunities come your way, And so learning to really send those through a filter to decide, is this something that's worth pursuing or not? And learning how to say no to a lot of things. So, and then, another thing that I get hit with a lot is because of the job demand for, Salesforce developers and consultants, I get a lot of inquiries from recruiters. So I'm kind of shifting gears to referring people, because I have this network of people that are kind of growing up on the platform with me. And I just happen to be a couple of steps ahead of them time-wise. But now that we're a year and a half in, they're getting to where they're doing amazing things. And I share some of that with the community. And so I'm looking at ways to share some of those job leads and help people, get that first job. Because Salesforce is a area where people do serious career pivots, And for myself, a technical writer with some web ability, to be doing consulting and development because it was an attainable path. And so that's, my typical day is very interesting, because we got a large family, we got a business, never a dull moment, so.
Sounds busy. So on your courses on Udemy, what have you found to be the best way to promote a new course? Any tips or strategies for launching a new course, or are you doing promotions every month for all of your current courses? What's kind of your promotion schedule like?
So I've learned to leverage the 2 promotional announcements each month that Udemy provides. And then also I'm trying to do better at leveraging the 4 educational announcements as well. But the key there with educational stuff is to have something to offer. And so I'll do updates on my website for cool things that Salesforce is doing. I did something today that I'm thinking, okay, when I'm done with this, I'm going to send out an educational announcement around this. And so it's basically collecting everything that I've blogged about or run across related to Salesforce in the past week. And I send that out as an educational announcement. And then when people are on my website, that's just kind of to the side, is some information on some upcoming courses, stuff like that. But on the promotional side, I do tend to leverage those 2 announcements a month. And sometimes it really depends on, if I've got a new course out, I'll try and send the one when it launches and then another one with some perceived, window closing, basically. It's like, oh, this will be $10 for the next week or the next. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big ticking clock guy. It kind of annoys me, but it works. And so sometimes I've done that as well, especially if it's leading up into some sort of busy season. In order for it to, it's kind of like launching a rocket. You need enough lift to get, through the atmosphere so that you can orbit, That's the end goal with any course, is for it to reach that what's called evergreen status, and some of my courses have done that and others have not. And so getting that initial launch is like very critical. And so I try to, especially with a new course, just go all in with that course and all focus and attention in one call to action. If I don't have a new course and I've got a promotional announcement still left and it's getting towards the end of the month, I'll go ahead and send it like, hey, course, any of my courses, $10 till the end of the month or something, just to kind of end the month strong and stuff like that.
Yeah, cool. So it sounds like you are kind of just dealing with Udemy's pricing strategy by just using $10 deals. Any thoughts about their pricing? And have you tried higher prices in the past and just found that the $10 deals is what works best, or what?
I'm really intrigued with pricing. It's something I spend way too much time on. But, even on my own website, I say that my vision statement is to equip, inspire, and train the masses on the Salesforce platform. And so, I had to make a decision early on. Am I going to be the Walmart, or am I going to be the Mercedes-Benz of Salesforce training? Well, Salesforce is kind of the Mercedes-Benz of Salesforce training, because you can go through a week-long course and spend $5,000. And so they occupy that space. And then as well, I can be sentimental about what the market should bear, but I'd like to be a realist and just embrace what it will actually tolerate. And that reality that we live in today is that people are willing to spend $10 for a course. And And we're seeing some downward trends of that. Salesforce has recently removed that floor for some countries. This is something that I brought up to them, and I'm sure others have as well. It's no new idea. But I thought, there's a lot of students in some countries where, the average household income is so much smaller than America. And so I would be okay in those countries selling my courses for $5, $4. I mean, I almost look at number of people more than revenue dollars, which is probably not wise from a business perspective. But I'm not looking at the immediate sell, but that relationship with that quote unquote customer or student over the long term, because they inevitably will buy something else. Odds are if they like what I'm doing, then they're along for the ride and the journey, and they're also spreading the word to others. And so I've just kind of embraced the promotional deals from Udemy. I mean, I've toyed around with trying to raise prices, and I guess it's the hardest thing with doing your own platform on Teachable, because you have people say, oh, you should charge $400, and that's a hard sell to make, and I wouldn't do it. I would not spend $400 for my courses, but I would spend 20, 30, 40, a bundle. And so what I'm targeting now as far as strategy goes is bulk and bundles. That's what it's all about as far as things that Udemy is kind of starting to do. And there's ways that they are doing bulk, but it's not really out there. And so, I could go on and on about Udemy for Business and why I pulled out of that. It just depends on where you want to go with all this stuff. And I have no idea how much time we got either, but.
Yeah. Well, there has been a lot of talk this week since we're recording this the week after Udemy Live, and they talked about dropping that price floor in countries where their money doesn't go as far. And I think there was a conversation on Facebook. I saw someone, I'm not going to stand by these numbers, so double check them. But someone was talking about how in India, average household income is like $700 a year. So if someone's paying $10 or $15 for a course, that's 1% or more of their annual income. So that's a huge deal compared to someone in San Francisco paying $10 or $15 for a course. So I'm of the mindset of you, like, we have to kind of, if you want to be on Udemy, you have to embrace the masses technique. And it's possible to sell your course for $400 on Teachable, but I do believe it's a lot more work. People will say and tell you like, oh, selling to one person for $400 it's going to end up being the same amount of work as to sell a course for $10 or $20, but I don't buy that. It's a lot more work to sell those premium products, and I've tried and I've done it, but it is a lot more work at the end of the day. So a couple more questions. Just you've been on Udemy, but what's the best way that you've been starting to build your brand outside of Udemy? What kind of social media platform? What kind of content are you curating? What's been the best for you?
Yeah, so I've been doing more and more just on social media, trying to be more consistent with blogging or vlogging, doing stuff on YouTube, doing some silly things. There's some interesting things that hopefully get some sort of traction or traffic or whatever. And so some of the platforms that work well for me is LinkedIn, because I deal in the professional space. And then as well, another thing that I learned was how to get students to share their success stories online. And I actually reached out to Ryan Kroonenberg, who had a watershed moment in the online teaching space with his Round A series, raising almost $9 million for his platform. And I was noticing on LinkedIn that everyone is giving him a shout out every time that anytime a student passed a certification. And I said, how do you get these students to share this news? And he just said in his bonus lecture, he asked them to share on LinkedIn, and then he'll endorse their skills. And I hope he doesn't mind me sharing the secret sauce, and I do the same thing. And so if you see people thanking Mike Wheeler all the time for passing, it's because they want to get their newly found skills endorsed. And so I do verify their certification. Salesforce provides a way to verify that, and that's good enough for me. Then if they've been able to pass the test, then that's verifiable evidence to me that they do know enough about Salesforce administration for me to feel good about endorsing them. So that gives them a little something towards their career goals, and it also gives me some free advertising, frankly. And then as well, I've created the Facebook group that I mentioned previously. I have a Facebook page that's not very good and I need to do better at. Twitter, did a little bit on Twitter as well. And so I'm really looking at doing podcasts as well. I mean, even just reaching out and raising my hand and saying, hey, I'll be interviewed, as far as, as I've followed what you're doing here with this podcast and been fascinated with the people that you've interviewed and thought, I wonder if I could be on that and share my own story. And so I thought, well, a good way for me to learn about doing podcasts is to be interviewed for one, And so I really appreciate you doing this for me. And this is kind of, for me, a watershed moment. This is my first podcast interview. So
cool.
I haven't been on the podcast circuit. I'm learning that there's apparently a podcast circuit. So I'm not even really, I guess if I were doing this smart, I would have some new product to sell or promote. I could say, oh, I got upcoming courses or whatever. But I see this as, just really sharing my own story and doing these sorts of things in order to, I guess, raise awareness of my own brand or whatever. And, just really looking at it as a way to, I guess, give back to the community as well, sharing some tips on what I found that worked or what didn't, and just share, and also to learn. And as you've probably been able to tell, I've made mention of watching others that have preceded me and have had success, such as yourself and Ryan Kroonenberg, and there's others as well, like Rob Percival, and the list goes on and on. And I mean, I track what you guys are doing, and I figured that you've been doing this for a while, you know what you're doing. And so I never think that I've arrived or that I can't learn new things. I'm always curious, always want to learn new things. And so I think eventually, I don't know, but I think eventually I'll probably branch out beyond even Salesforce, even though there's so much to teach and the platform is so deep and you'll never cover it all. I have a lot of other interests and a lot of other things that intrigue me, and I think I could teach on affiliate marketing or SEO or WordPress, but I'm in the Salesforce space and it's a good place to be. So I'm not going to get too crazy with get off into left field and do things I shouldn't be doing, hopefully.
Yeah, well, I mean, the good thing is that you've branded your company or your business as Mike Wheeler Media, which allows you to kind of pivot to other areas. But at the same time, you want to be the Salesforce expert, and especially on Udemy and hopefully on your own platform. And by doing podcasts like this, exactly. If I do my job, people will type in Salesforce interview or something on Google, and your podcast episode will pop up, and then people will click on your courses. So I think podcasts are a great way to do that too. So it sounds like a lot is happening in the future. So I'm going to ask you one more question. Just if you have any last piece of advice for online instructors. If there's something, I didn't ask you this, but if there was something about your courses that you think is the reason why students love your courses more than other courses. So I'll let you think about that while I just remind people that people can check out your website at mikewheelermedia.com. I'll link to that and also your Udemy profile, all your social media profiles on the onlinecoursemasters.com website. So yeah, share maybe a final tip or piece of advice for people who are getting started with teaching online.
So yeah, that's a great question. And I think just being your authentic self, and really looking at and taking inventory on what you're good at and what you're not. And there's going to be people out there that launch a course and it's going to fail. Odds are your first course is going to fail. Results not typical. From what you've just sat through and listened to me talk, just the caveat is these results are not typical. Now, that's because I spent 15 years as a technical writer condensing down a lot of in-depth technical information in a presentable fashion, okay? And so I've had that training. I know how to do that. I also have the benefit of having talented sons that know how to make me look semi-decent and sound okay and edit out the ums and ahs. So, but you can get there. It's just going to require some work. I've said that with each course that I've done, for the most part, it's been like the hardest thing that I've ever done professionally. There were so many times in doing that first big paid course for that admin certification that I didn't know if I could do it, had a lot of doubts. It really reminded me of my journey of attaining the certification itself. And I actually failed the first time I took that certification test and then ended up passing ultimately. And so, it's just marching forward and not being driven by making money while you sleep, even though that's a great thing to do, is to wake up and have made money while you're sleeping. But it's to help others, and to add value, and then the money will follow. the people will find you, and quality content will win the day. There's a level playing field for the most part with distribution and attention. And so if you create quality content, we happen to be in the midst of a consumption society worldwide. Everyone's on their phones, everyone's distracted, they're looking for information, and it's information that will either entertain them or help them in some way. And so you just got to figure out how you can fit in that space and then just do it, and then just iterate and improve and always be improving, you know. That's all it is. And so don't get discouraged if you try something and it fails, or even if you've tried something before and it's failed, or well, I tried this on YouTube and no one paid attention. You know, keep trying, try the next thing. You know, I mean, I could draw the analogies with Thomas Edison, but I'll spare you the history lesson. But it's just keep after it, keep improving. If this is something that you feel like you can do, then go for it. And then also really take feedback. You know, teaching is not for everybody. It is a gift just like slamming a basketball, and not everyone can do it. I'm sorry, not everyone can code either. I'm not a big proponent of the anybody can code mantra. I'm kind of the opposite of that. Few people can code, but Salesforce means that you don't have to. So anyway, back to my point is just go for it, try it out, see if it's for you. Fail fast, do a free course, even though everyone's telling you it's a waste of time. And if you can get a review high enough to where it's like above a 4.1, then you're onto something. And then if you're starting to collect some email addresses, you're onto something. Those are clues, those are hints that, there's some traction here. And then just take it one day at a time and go build your own thing.
Perfect. Well, if anyone decides to skip to the last minute of this show, they got all the best advice that you could have given. So that was perfect for new instructors, but also people just like me who are doing this and have been doing this for a while. So thanks, Mike, so much for being on the podcast. I'm excited to see where you go. I'm excited to see where your sons go, and maybe I'll have them on the podcast sometime too to hear their side of the story. And let me know if you need anything from me in the future. And yeah, just thanks again.
Alrighty.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, if you want to fast track your success, head over to onlinecoursemasters.com and sign up for your free trial of my flagship program, the Online Course Masters Masterclass. Yep, that's right. It's a masterclass designed to take you from zero to hero, creating and selling your very own online courses. If you haven't done so yet, please leave a review for this show wherever you listen. This is how we can help expand our audience and help teach the world. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week in the next edition of the Online Course Masters Show.